Hi, welcome to my critical review of practice for surfaces and strategies. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about my intent, the obstacles that I've faced during this module, the contextual influence of the work, its professional context, and how I'm going to move forward with my project at the end of this unit. So when I was thinking about how I could move the project forward from the last unit in informing context, I felt that the pandemic presented an opportunity to further explore these themes of resilience, authenticity, and pride within seaside towns. It felt like a natural progression with a subject that I've been investigating, and it was, highly topical with quite a unique angle with this theme of lockdown and the easing of it. So my intent has been to capture this quite unique and compelling time within these places by the sea. These places already experience vast amounts of extremes throughout the year. When you think of these places in and out of season, caused by the weather and economic dependence through the way that we spend our time and money there, I believe that creating this sense of uneasiness that the pandemic has caused upon all our lives. In my images, there is a sense of the familiar in the landscapes, but also there isn't something quite right going on, which reflects the country in the past 5 months, like a transition as we move to this new normal, in inverted commas. Arriving at a clear focus in my work has been difficult, and I've faced many obstacles along the way. The problem with shooting in such a well-known location a lot of the time is that there's like a plethora of photographic opportunities, and it can be difficult to focus in one area. I tried to explore the idea of honing in on one area through memorials and tokens and objects. These shots that I did of this metal detectorist and these findings that day were a good starting point for this. He holds the objects in his hand, these lost objects found on Blackpool Beach that tell a story and hold a certain history, much like the memorials you found dotted around seaside towns. The more shoots that I did, the more I struggled to find a focus on one area in the work, and it became quite a mixture of landscapes and details, objects both spectacular and the mundane. Felt like I was getting a bit lost, and I kept going back to the work, and then I read about Rebecca Norris Webb, what she calls her revision in her process, an excavation to uncover and begin to understand what the work is truly about versus what I initially thought it was about. I found it was useful to try and create my own revision as my project continued to evolve through shoots and feedback. I started to spend more time looking at images when editing and moving back and forth between them, combining them and going through the contact sheets and seeing the process that I went through when shooting, trying to find the right photographic language to convey the meaning that I wanted to communicate to my audience. It was this shoot at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in early June where I started to get a bit more focus and direction to my project and its visual feel. I wanted to concentrate on a more poetic image in the portfolio, while still maintaining this feel of the uncanny and this uneasiness and the familiarity of the surroundings, where there's something not quite right with this combination of people or the lack of, and this kind of desolate and isolated environment. I think there's a power in the seaside image that can link to the viewer's past and the memories of familiarity and the vividness of childhood. Through the buildings and the shapes and the texture and the light, people can contribute to this notion or the feeling of the uncanny and the uncanny aesthetic through cultural representations. The use of film, I feel, accentuates this also with a reference to the past of like photo albums and family albums. Throughout the project, I've been heavily influenced by the work of Raymond Moore, the way he captures these unspectacular landscapes that may kind of go unnoticed usually, but they evoke all kind of responses in the viewer, with this bleakness of the black and white and the heavy contrast and the everyday spaces that again have this familiar feel in the audience. Moore's photographs are very emotive and poetic. He stated in his intentions to portray life as an expression of his own life. He said the meaning and message that lie in the photographs is a visual matter, and it cannot be translated into words. To me, they sing and they celebrate life, or should do, and life is an extension of the person taking them. I think with Moore's images, it's very hard to describe them, and they're more like a feeling than something you can put into words. There is something in them that makes you feel that you wouldn't want to be there. The place is quite a vacuity to it. It's darkness, it's solitude, and it's silence. It seems to capture a lot of things as humans that we also are scared of, but also that we desire at the same time. Flusser states, photographers have power over those who look at their photographs. They program their actions, and the camera has power over the photographers. It programs their acts. Using the camera as an extension of my own experience and feelings, to express them to an audience so that they see something within themselves within the image. With my subject matter, I feel that most readers can relate to some aspects of my photographs. Exhibition is something that I've thought about a lot in this project. I believe the work will be best exhibited through projections, or this idea of a DIY installation using the local architecture in the places where the work was shot. This approach will make the work more accessible for a variety of audiences and give a sense of immediacy. During this module I also made a book, and it was a good process to go through and a good experience. I was aiming for an old school photo album with an acrylic front cover. I went with pairings throughout to practice linking images. There were too many images in the book. I think I would move forward with a smaller book that is more concise and well thought out, like Niall McDiarmid's Show. I asked Niall about the sequencing in his book, and he told me that he wanted to get different towns within his book, and not all the pictures are the same format. The size of the book being small, but many landscapes, so they had to go across the gutter, and I wanted it to feel easy like a day out, so I dropped all the captions and kept it simple. Finally, in this portfolio, I wanted to capture the narrative and the context and the rhythm of the landscape in terms of how it's used by different types of people during the pandemic, especially after the easing of lockdown. I feel creating this poetic and reflexive images represent the spaces slowly getting busier and back to the new normal. The portfolio will look like a series of stages of the way the world has looked in the past 5 months, and signposts of what may be to come for the future and the world that we live in. So capturing this sense of uncertainty and instability in these resilient, authentic and prideful places.